I've played a good amount of Thomas games. I've played some fan games, mobile games, and flash games. But I have always dreaded the console games and the PC games. But I stopped dreading the PC games when I watched Ben 10 Life's video on Thomas PC games. This video was super solid, and it made me want to suck it up and buy the PC games for this video. Well, what games do we have for this video, you might be wondering? Well, we have 8 games in total to cover, which is all the Thomas PC games they ever ended up making, which, shocking it's only 8 to me. But let's waste no time and get into the video. Building the New Line is a track building game made by Stunt Puppy Entertainment Inc., and it was published by Infogrames. If Infogrames sounds familiar to you, you might remember them from my video on the cancelled PS1 Thomas game. They were going to be the publisher for that game, and once I realized that I was about to play an Infogrames published game, I was honestly really excited to see what Thomas game they would like to publish. And let's just say that Stunt Puppy Entertainment Inc. did okay. Before we even start this game, I want to show you all what the icon you click to play this game looks like. And I absolutely love it. Oh, I gotta put my name here. Let's just put Gins, but oh. I'm just called Cannon's Post. In building the New Line, you get to select an engine. I'm going with Edward because I just like the way he looks here. Then you select a location. I'm gonna choose the docks because Topham said Bulstrode is there, and I want to see him. And then finally you select a track layout. A layout? This game is a track builder, not a layout placer. I thought the whole point of the game would be to build your own layout, but they just make you place track that already has a pre-made layout for you? What's the point of the game? Then once we get into the game, we get to place down the tracks onto the gravel here. Wait a minute, why is Thomas there? I selected Edward. Oh, is that grass too? Maybe this is just like a temporary thing? Well, I did everything right. I'm probably just overthinking this. Then you go to place down cargo and decorate the map. And it really sinks that all I can do here is just decorate and not actually build the track. I also think the music choice here was pretty weird for this part of the game. It uses Sir Topham Hatt's classic theme, so while you're building all of this, I just feel like I'm in trouble. I think if they had a more relaxed theme to it, it would have been better. Now since we have everything set up, all we have to do is press this button and no. Thomas is here and this isn't the docks. Dang it! I wanted to see a Bulstrode! That's fine, I guess. I mean, I can just replay the game with Edward. So now since we have the track and our engine that we definitely wanted, we get to pick up the crates that we placed, and the crates are at these destinations. We go to these destinations and Thomas tells you good job in multiple ways. It's nice to drive Thomas here. You get to go forwards and backwards, and once you've clicked on everything, you get to go again and ooh, you get to repair Thomas. And oh yes, cleaning games. I love these type of cleaning games. They're like so weirdly fun to me. Once we have fixed and cleaned Thomas, we go on to the final stage. We get to decorate this area, and once we do, we get wow, it's beautiful. Once we do all of that, we get an image of our line we built, and wow, this game kinda stinks. Before I talk about my opinions on the game, I want to quickly play with Edward, because I got robbed. Alright, finally Edward works this time. I guess when you play it for the first time, you have to be Thomas. For being released in 2002, this game honestly looks pretty decent. It kinda feels cheap compared to the other games that came before it, but I don't mind it too much. Okay, let's see Bulstrode. Oh my gosh, he's so cute! This was 100% worth playing the game. And at the end of the game, Edward gets fireworks. The laggiest fireworks ever, but hey, they are fireworks, so. Building the New Line is a very okay game. It doesn't do anything wrong, there just really isn't much to do. And the stuff that you can play just gets really repetitive very quickly. Now before anyone says it, I know all these games are meant for children, so going into all these games, I just know that they aren't going to be very challenging or not the most entertaining things ever. But I am still disappointed because we do have some actual good PC games on this list, which we will get into later. For stuff this game did right, I like the narrator. Robin Smith is the narrator for this game, and he does a pretty decent job. His character voices aren't anything super interesting or like worth hearing, but I think he sounds pretty good. And as I said earlier, I do like the models for the game, and it had a really good tutorial. I knew how to do everything, even though I wish I could skip it. I don't really want to watch it all the time. And yeah, that's kind of it. I don't really have much to say about this. I try to say much about it, but there just isn't enough content to get me interested in the game. Special Delivery is probably the third most boring Thomas game I have ever played. Special Delivery is made by Multimedia Ltd. And published by Mindscape. This game uses Flash to run, and it reuses a ton of Flash game assets. This game might as well just be the Thomas Flash game. You get to play either the story mode or the extra game, which the extra game is just a track builder. But let's start with the story. The story starts off with Topham giving the engines jobs, and Mavis, who replaced Edward, so thanks Mavis. This story is focused on Thomas and James. Topham gives James the special delivery, which is a shipment from the zoo. Topham needs James to deliver the animals from Brenham Docks to the zoo right away. James then has some famous last words and tells Topham,
"You can rely on me."
Yeah. We'll see about that, James. Since Topham notices Thomas wants to go too, he tells Thomas to go to the station at the zoo to help James. After that, we get to the gameplay, and we have to click on the right character that can help James deliver the animals, which is pretty much all of them. I see them all helping James out in like multiple ways. Like, Henry could go get some trucks, Gordon could go take half the animals, and Harold could probably fly one of them there. But we have to choose Troublesome to help us out. Then we have to click on 3 troublesome trucks, and we get to see Naughty and Troublesome, the weird characters that are troublesome trucks that got names because of Ertl. Then we get something mind-blowing.
"James," said the trucks, "you know the way to the docks? We don't want to get lost."
I can't believe they gave him a voice. For whatever reason in this game, there is a really weird lack of music. It's just talking, and have you noticed that it just zooms in randomly? That's not me doing it, it just does that for no reason randomly. I would never do something like that. We get this nice footage of James going down the line and Naughty's face is gone! Once James gets to the docks and we pick up the ship with the animals in it, we lower the animals down with Cranky into the trucks, but James thinks that his load is so special that he must show his friend Birdie, which he is apparently friends with? Did they ever interact with each other? Honestly, I would really like to know. Then we cut to see Thomas's journey, and nothing much happens in it. I will cover the minigame you have to play here when I talk about the gameplay. But besides this cursed side PNG of Thomas, nothing really happens until he gets to the station, where he talks to Topham, who is not happy about James being late. Then, predictably, James gets lost, so we have to guide him on where to go, for him to only still end up being lost and need help from Thomas, even though we could have asked the people at this station here for directions. Topham tells Thomas to go look for James, and since Topham is so talented, he just slides into the room to radio Harold. Then the troublesome trucks complain about the animals, so James lets them out, and we get to play this pretty fun Harold game. Now I think I should talk about the gameplay in this game so far. For the gameplay, it's been really simple. It's mostly just click the right option type gameplay. There was also a track layout game randomly at the start of the game where James has to get the trucks. And when James got the animals from the docks, there's this game where he had to build the carriers for every animal. And it was not that fun. Remember that Thomas game I was talking about earlier? Well, it is the worst minigame in the entire game. A truck spills a bunch of toys onto the tracks, and we have to use Harold to pick them up, and it is so slow, it is painful. Harold takes forever to put them into the right truck, and if you accidentally put the wrong shape in there, you have to wait for Harold to put it back down, and then pick it back up again and do it again. It's really painful. And then there was that one game where you have to guide James to help him go back to where he was, which was also pretty boring. So that is what the games have been like so far. All these games have been pretty bad. That is until you get a solid Harold flying minigame. You have to fly Harold around to find James through a ton of clouds. The more you explore, the more you see. I found Percy and Mavis for whatever reason has Steam. fizzling firebox. Why do people think Mavis is a steam engine? Once we find James, Harold tells Thomas where he is, and Thomas and James and I put the animals back into the trucks, and we finally make it to this animal station. Topham is understandably mad at James, and for the trucks,
As for you, he said, looking at the trucks, I've heard all about your tricks from James's driver. You're lucky I don't turn you all into scrap.
oh my gosh! Then the game ends with you decorating the zoo, and that's how the story ends. Oh, this is a cool little certificate here. Yeah, that's right. I printed this out. It stinks that my printer glitched out, so it kind of ruined it a little, but I finally have proof I beat this game, and I am proud to keep this framed. Now, we still have the extra game to cover though, so let's go over the track builder. You get a ton of different backgrounds to choose from with this track builder, and my favorite is the one with these flowers because the sound it makes when you go by them. The track builder is really just okay. It's not anything special. It's 100% better than building the line though. That one, like this just makes that game look completely useless. Overall though, this game really stunk. I do not recommend playing this game. The story isn't that great, and it's the main appeal. Also a huge lack of music, so it feels really empty for most of the story, and it has a really basic moral, so I don't think it's really worth playing the game unless you want to play some torture. Thomas and the Magic Railroad by Prince Studios. This game is a game, and that's the best way to describe it. I originally wasn't going to cover this game for the video. I was going to cover the best of Thomas game for this video, but after I bought it, my friend told me that I just bought a regular CD. It was 100% my fault for not looking into all of the PC games before buying it, but it has a demo of the Great Festival Adventure on it, so that's why it was labeled under CD-ROMs, so my bad on that part. So for Thomas and the Magic Railroad by Prince Studios the PC game, what is there to it, you ask? Well, this game is really just a fancy way to print out stuff. I probably should have guessed that this would be a printing game because the studio that made it is called Prince Studios. For this game, you can print out pictures, make your own puzzle, print origami, and color. Oh, also Edward is in the game, so I guess that's cool. That's about it though with the game. It's honestly really bad, and it's a waste of time for sure. I was very disappointed when playing this game, and I highly don't recommend it. And really, this game should have just been a website page to just print out stuff, because there's no reason to buy a CD-ROM to just print stuff. The Great Festival Adventure, developed by Mind's Eye Productions. While I wouldn't say the adventure had much to do with the actual festival, it is still pretty good. This game, out of all the official Thomas games I have played so far, is one that feels like a Thomas game should. The models are great, the music is awesome, and the cutscenes, well, yeah, they kinda aged, still look great. I really do appreciate them making the models look exactly like the TV show, and with the power of Bink Video, makes them still look pretty decent today. Also, they had Robin Smith voice all the characters again. Unless you lived in the UK, where Michael Angelis voiced all the characters though. So, kinda wish we could have gotten, like, Alec Baldwin to voice for this game, but that's alright, Robin Smith works. Then finally, we got the gameplay, which is the weakest part of the game. This game has you play the story, so you are basically playing a Thomas episode, but it's a game. And this time it doesn't stink! So for the story, Topham tells the engines to wake up because it's festival day. All the engines already know their jobs for the day, which is weird because I thought the main reason he was arrived to tell them their jobs, but if they already know them in advance, then why did he show up? I do like that Topham blinks here. I wouldn't expect them to do that. After all the engines know what to do, we get thrown onto the map, and here's where we get into the gameplay. You get to select mini games in any order to play. When you finish a game, you get an award that Topham puts up on his wall, and if you go there, you see some amazing photos, and you get to make cool coloring pages and puzzles. This is where you get to see Bullshirt's model, and oh my gosh, this looks like an old Trains model. I didn't think developers would use 2D images for faces while making an official Thomas game, especially one that looks like it was taken like a screenshot from a Thomas episode, but honestly, that's pretty cool that they did that. The games themselves are pretty boring though. We have the best game first, and that is the Fixing the Engines game, where you clean the engines, fix the engines, and give the engines coal. Kinda like the Building the New Line minigame, where you got to do the same thing, but this one's better. Then we got the Herald game, where you put these rocks into the trucks. We got your generic shape game. We got this game that confused me because I didn't listen to what Topham said, but in the game you have to listen to Topham and he will tell you who to put on Annie and Clarabelle. This game did introduce the best character of the game, and that is the guy who opens and closes the doors in record time. I love how dedicated to his job he is. Then we got the Terrence game, where he herds cows. We got a game where you build the festival, and finally we got the second best game, the music game. We get to click on stuff and it will make a sound that goes with the Thomas theme. Sadly, I can't play this because of copyright, but it is a very legendary moment. Now the game does have a difficulty option. Sorta. After you play the game once, you can do it again and there will be more stuff to do. Like for Terrence's game, after you herd the cows, there is a haystack, and then after you do it again, there is more haystacks, and then after you do that, there is a tire. You don't get set back if you hit anything in this field, it's just in your way, and it just makes it slightly harder. Also for the game where you build the festival, you just build more buildings. It's not made harder, it's just more work. You can't set a difficulty level for these minigames. You have to play them more for it to get more difficult, and if you just want the game to be harder, then you'll have to keep playing the game, which is pretty boring. Also doesn't help that the games don't fit with the story like at all. For example, Thomas tells Harold, "I bet you can't beat me there," and Harold flies off, so you think they would have a race, or a minigame, or, you know, just something. But nope, Thomas has stopped by Terrence to watch him herd some cows. What did this have to do with the festival? We do find out who won the race, and it was Thomas. Somehow, I guess that stop was necessary? That's really all I have to talk about for the gameplay, so let's talk about the story, which is actually pretty interesting. After the introduction cutscene, we see Thomas, Percy, and Gordon. They have a lot of work to do, but they are dirty, so we have to clean and fix them. Once done, we get to see Thomas making fun of Gordon because he didn't have to turn around on a turntable like Gordon. And then the wind picks up and this poor guy's hat just flies away, never to be seen again. And then Thomas is all like, "I'm glad I don't need a turntable," and just leaves him. And Thomas drives, and oh no, rocks have fallen. After Harold picks up the rocks, Thomas gets a drink and goes to the docks where we get to see Small Cranky. Then Thomas goes through a tunnel, and it whistles and it echoes, so that was cool. Then Thomas arrives at the station. I pick up one singular passenger. Then on Thomas's way to the festival, he sees Harold, and Harold is going to the festival, so Thomas says he better hurry if he wants to beat him. I already talked about this weird race thing. Thomas, off screen, just decided to ditch Annie and Clarabelle for some reason for some trucks, and he has Harold build the festival, which is something that you would think they would have already done. And for some reason, Annie and Clarabelle are now back, and Thomas is going along the line with Edward, who is on the wrong side of the tracks. The two trucks Edward is pulling get bored and decide to push Edward, causing him to crash. 2 trucks caused him to crash. 2! I wonder if it was like only 2 trucks because the others couldn't load in for the cutscene, or maybe it was because the animation didn't look good. I don't know, it's just weird that it was only 2 trucks. But Thomas is all nice about it and says, "Aw, poor Edward," and leaves him. We get the band game, and after that, everyone who was in the game is at TATMR sheds. Even Birdie and Terrence showed up, except Henry. Oh yeah, and I guess Harold isn't there either, but he could easily be up in the sky. Topham tells the engines that the festival was a great success. I wish we could have seen it, but in a way it makes sense because the festival wasn't for them. Topham tells the engines they deserved a well-earned rest, and the story ends. That was The Great Festival Adventure, and for being the first Thomas game Mind's Eye Productions would make, it could have been better. Main appeal for the game is the story, and not the gameplay. When the gameplay feels more like an interruption to the story and not something that adds on to it, I think that's a problem. But credit to the writer of the game. This is a very fun story, and while it doesn't make a lot of sense, and while some of the cutscenes just kind of feel like they were placed there, it's still fun and enjoyable to watch. I do wish we could have gotten some behind the scenes stuff on like the making of this game or the other games Mind's Eye Productions would make, but maybe we can get that one day. I can't believe it! I have finally played an actual good official Thomas game. The other official Thomas games I've talked about, the other ones were like good, but not anything I would say you need to play. But this game, you need to play as a Thomas fan. Before I talk about the game though, when I first got this game, I tried loading this game up on Windows 11, which didn't work because this is an old game, and it showed me the .exe file to print. So I clicked no, and the printer turns on, and I get the .exe logo in color on a piece of paper. So now it's on my wall. But now let's talk about the game. Trouble on the Tracks is made by Mind's Eye Productions, only a year after the Great Festival Adventure was made. That is insane. I really hope that the work environment was okay. This game really does feel like they looked at the Great Festival Adventure and said, now let's make the games fun and the story better. I think what makes this game the best official Thomas game is that it has the right balance of good gameplay and story. So let's talk about the gameplay. Gameplay for this game at first might look to be the same as the Great Festival Adventure, but they added a difficulty level. Now you can choose from 1, which is easy, 2, which is medium, and 3, which is hard. Also for the games, they all feel like you're helping with the story. For example, when James crashes, you have to put these wheels into the right places, and once you do, you press the button and you help James back onto the tracks. Or the game where you drive James, or the game where you fly Harold around to help find James. All the games have a narrative purpose, and that's exactly how these games should be. Also while playing the game, the characters actually interact with each other. In this Lori game, the Lori is complaining about doing the job and asks why James couldn't just do it himself, and TATMR replies telling him James has had an accident. Also in the games, there is so much to click on, like most PC games from this era. I found this out by accident. I got stuck on a cranky game and started clicking on everything, only for this flower to grow, and that was so cool to find out. It makes me want to go back and play the game again to click on everything I possibly can. Probably my favorite thing I clicked on was this roof here. It was just again clicking around and oh, but that is the gameplay. It's extremely solid, and I cannot wait to talk about the story because it does not disappoint. The story starts with the guy calling Topham to let him know that they are running out of coal and there's only enough coal for one engine. Topham decides to choose James, and James is excited. He tries to get there as fast as possible, but he went too fast and he can't slow down in time, so he crashes. Topham gets worried about James, so he calls Whoa! I think Topham could have used a neck. He calls this guy to get Harold and search for him. We get the Harold game, which has the best theme song I have ever heard for a PC Thomas game so far. Finally, Harold finds James, and Harold's pilot says he needs the breakdown train. But he can't send another engine to go get it because they have no coal, so he gets Lori 1 to help him. It's crazy that Lori 1 just shows up in this game. And once Lori 1 collects coal for all the engines, he says he hopes all the engines will remember who helped them out, which they don't because it never comes up again. Topham then gives Thomas the job of collecting the breakdown train to go get James, and oh my gosh, this game looks so good! They really improved the cutscenes by adding a lot more background elements to make the world feel less like a set. Sadly for James though, the breakdown train breaks down. So once Thomas arrives to James, they fix the breakdown train, and we finally get James back onto the rails and oh, my game crashed. Once I boot up the game again and refix the breakdown train, James is back on the rails, and unlike the CGI series where an engine falls off the rails and you just put him back up like nothing ever happened, James can't actually move, so Thomas brings James to Tinmouth, and then we get this pretty boring game of which whistle is James's. And I already know which one it is. It's that one right there. Thomas asks Topham what he can do to help James, and he has Thomas go to the harbor. He has Percy to go get a lamp at the lamp shop for James. Oh, that's a mouse. Quick, put mouse on the Thomas wiki! Then we get to fix James and paint James. Then we get probably the weirdest scene where James says he feels much better now, for then Gordon to tell him to hurry up and to help with all the work they have. James says he's still not ready yet. And then we fade to James being sad, talking to Topham like, what? Then we get this really fun game where we fill James's water up, and this is a really weird looking attachment here. We also give him some coal, and we get to test drive James to make sure everything is working. And for the end of the story, we actually have to quit the game, which is interesting to see. Once we quit the game, we see all of the engines, even Henry at Tinmouth Sheds, and Thomas asks if he enjoyed taking the passengers out, which he did, and James says that he is going to try to not ever go that fast again. Topham thanks all the engines for helping James, and that's where the story ends. Wow, what a good game. I know I spoiled most of the game for everyone here, but really do go check out this game if you have any interest in it. It is 100% worth checking out and playing. It's such a good game. Okay, so this is kind of funny. I forgot about this game. I forgot to even write it in the script, so this is all improv here. But the Misty Island Rescue PC game is a okay game. It's honestly good for what the gameplay is. I don't think the games are too terribly boring. They are boring, but not as boring as some other games on the list. And honestly, it's fun to play. Here's what the game is like. You get these cutscenes, which I'm guessing are made in Flash, and then you get some which are from the actual movie. You get these really weird Flash cutscenes, I don't know what's up with Topham's mouth here, or Thomas's. For playing the game wise, you get to choose between Misty Island and Sttar. You get to do a lot of mini games on Sttar, which you get a matching game, which why do so many Thomas games have these matching games? You also got this cranky game where you load cargo into this stuff, and then you also got this one game where you have to click on stuff to get it out of Thomas's way. It's really not super fun, but for a game itself, it controls well, and I think that people could find fun, especially kids could find this game to be pretty fun. Now, story-wise, I mean, it's Misty Island Rescue. Does anyone really care? It's just an okay story. It's just basically the movie's plot, but with a lot more interruptions. But I think it is shorter to beat it all, so you could do a speedrun world record of this game, and you would get the whole movie's plot. I'm trying to think of stuff I like for this game. I like how you can build the search and rescue center, and I think it's funny that they even kept the tunnel system in to go from Misty Island to Sttar. Harold flies everywhere, which makes you think, if Harold's here, then why can't he go tell Topham where Thomas is, so that way they can go rescue him? That is really it for the Misty Island Rescue game. Not much to say about it. It's a very cursed looking game. I recommend just playing it because it's so cursed looking. That is the Misty Island Rescue PC game. The game I personally forgot to put in this video. So if this part of the video sounds very disorganized and I don't have my full thoughts on it, it's because it's all improv and that this game was so forgettable I just didn't put it in the script. But yeah, let's go on to the next game on the list. Thomas Saves the Day is the second Thomas PC game by Stunt Puppy Entertainment Inc. I'm hoping this game is a big improvement on building the new line. Now, I tried to get this game to work, but for whatever reason I couldn't get this game to work, so shout out to Calentail, I hope I'm saying the name right, for the footage. Their channel link will be in the description. The game starts off with a cover of a book. We get 5 chapters to play, and before you start thinking this is an adaptation of the episode Thomas Saves the Day, you are wrong, it is not in any way. We get Salty, who I guess just didn't get a 3D model in this angle, to tell the trucks about Thomas in a storm. When the weather hits Thomas's firebox, wait until morning. The storm goes away, but Thomas doesn't have any drag hole. Then we get thrown into the game, and is that a PNG of a squirrel? Yeah, I think I should mention this. They have this weird transition that plays every time you go somewhere new. You don't see me doing transition every time I do a cut to a video. The game's story isn't anything interesting, so I'm not going to bother telling you about it. The game is one of those games where you click on stuff to explore the world. But in this game, it's pretty boring and you have to sit through all of those transitions, and it can get very annoying. This game does have a minigame where you have to listen to a sound and match it with the item the sound comes from, and it has a difficulty slider, so that's cool. At the end of the game, it is actually pretty nice. The workers at Mr. Jolly's chocolate factory decide to make desserts in honor of Thomas, and Calentail gets to make them. The picture of Sir Topamat, who is talking to us, is honored to get such a fine box of chocolates, and he thanks Calentail, Thomas, and all of his really useful engines. It's weird not having much to say about this game, but I don't. To me, it was pretty boring and kind of a letdown. I thought Stunt Puppy Entertainment Inc. had it in them to make a game just as good as Trouble on the Tracks. And to be fair, this game did come out a year after the last game they made, so they probably did the best they could in such a short time. Well, let's go on to the next game. Thomas the Tank Engine Magical Adventure is a Japanese exclusive PC game. While installing the game, this happened and oh my gosh, this is nightmare fuel. But once I installed the game, that went away. I then had to choose my name, which I had no idea what I was typing, so if anyone knows Japanese in the comments, please tell me what my name is here. I would love to know. In this game, you get to watch Japanese Thomas episodes in only the best possible way, through selecting an engine, going through this journey, then click on one of the episodes and watch it. This is really just a fancy DVD player, but you can't choose what to watch. It's more of a surprise. You get to choose Thomas, Percy, or Gordon as your engine. They will drive you around, get lost in the dark void, and you will select random episodes from the show to watch. After you watch an episode though, for some of them, they will have a minigame. These can go from hard to control to pretty solid. The games in the game are pretty good for what they are. In these little transition places, we get to click on a lot of things, like click on this man and take control of everywhere he goes, or click on this guy with the ladder, or the girl trapped in the station. Okay, that last one was a lie. You can't click on her. She's trapped there forever. I think what's making the game so cursed is whatever the engines are on. Why does it look like this? Okay, that's probably because I'm playing this game on a Windows 98 emulator, and the game did tell me to use a better hardware for the color, but for me, it looks like the engines might be performing some illegal activities. I wish I had more to say about this game, but since it's all Japanese, I don't really understand what any of them are saying, and also, it's not like much of a game. It really is just a fancy DVD player. It's not even really a game to me. This really could have just been accomplished by a website where you could play mini games, or you could just watch some Thomas episodes. I don't get why they made a whole game about it. Like Prince Studio's TATMR game, it isn't really a game, it's just something else in disguise. Railway Adventures is the last game developed by Mind's Eye Productions. This game was published by Infogrames. This game has a pretty big plastic controller. You have to put it onto the keyboard and play the game. Or you could just play the game without the thing like I did, because you don't want to pay a lot of money for just a big piece of plastic for one game. For Railway Adventures, instead of being like the Great Festival Adventure or Trouble on the Tracks, it's pretty different. Like I said earlier, it uses this big plastic controller, and you use that controller to drive Thomas around. You can actually drive places, and you get to choose where you want to go, and what minigames to play in any order you like. Finally, I get to play an official Thomas game where I can actually drive the engines. Now, the graphics in this world you get to drive in look like a PS1 game. It's really strange looking at a Thomas model and then seeing the world, and it's all pretty weird, but I do like the locations you get to drive to. You can drive to Elsbridge Station and see these airplanes, which are hilarious. You can go to Wellsworth, or you can go to the biggest surprise ever, Coldyfell Station. It made me really happy to see the Coldyfell in the game, and there's even this little mini game that takes place at the Coldyfell. So let's talk about the mini games. These mini games, while they don't have a difficulty slider like I would have liked from the Trouble in the Tracks game, I think they are pretty good for the most part. I really like the one where you get stuff for Caroline, Lorry 1, and the mail truck driver, and the one where you get to repair the Coldyfell line for Percy. I really like it because you, James, Toby, Harold, and Cranky have to work together to repair the line, and it really feels like there's a lot of teamwork going on. There are also some bonus minigames you get to play while exploring the island. I only did this truck one, so I don't know if the other games are a lot of fun, but this truck one really wasn't that fun. That's it gameplay wise, and story wise there really isn't anything. You do have a good intro cutscene where Toby gets to talk to Thomas. Just no Henry though. Dang. For the video, I wanted to play one of these games with Michael Angelis as the narrator, and I decided to do it with this game. And I think he does a good job with the game.
Hooray! I think you're going. Hooray!
But to my surprise, it wasn't just him who voices everything. Some other actors also voice characters. Like we have Simon Hepworth, who voices Trevor, who I thought sounded creepy.
Come over here and talk to me.
I'm good. Stephen Donald as Cranky, who sounds alright.
Thomas, what a surprise!
And Michael Angelis, who sounds just like he did in Thomas.
It was a very hard job repairing the
I
viaduct.
wonder what my next job will be.
That's about it for the story. Railway Adventures to me is a pretty fun and entertaining game. Out of the trilogy that Mind's Eye Production gave us, I rank Trouble in the Tracks as the first best one, Railway Adventures as second, and The Great Festival as third. If you're going to check out any of these games in the video, Trouble on the Tracks and Railway Adventures are the ones to play. Well, that is all of the Thomas PC games. These were very interesting, and most of them were bad or just boring, but I'm glad I played them. If Mind's Eye Productions ever got to make any more Thomas games, I bet they would have been pretty good. It's really not surprising that most of these Thomas PC games aren't that good, because that's just how most games based off a movie or TV show or just book end up being. But for the good ones we got, I am pretty happy with them. Well, that is it from me. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.